So in your Chapter 4 files, find the folder labeled HP 4-3, 4-4, and 4-7. We'll use these project files for a couple of different assignments in this chapter. Once you are inside that folder, we are going to look at index in code. So open that into your Visual Studio Code. And if you load that in a browser, it looks something like this. So it's a pretty plain website that we are going to add some images to make it appear, just to make it nice. Yeah, we just want to fancy it up, right? Okay, we are first going to add a image that's going to take the place of this text in our H1. So scroll down to your header section and then find inside your H1 that kayakdoorcounty.net, and we're going to delete that. And you don't have to do this on your end, but I'm pressing enter, so it'll be a little easier for you to follow because we are learning a new element today. Okay, so how do we get an image into a website? We start out with an image tag. An image tag is a void tag, which means it does not need a closing tag. That's like our break tag, our HR tag. We don't have to close one when we open one. And code knows that, so it won't put a closing image tag in there for you. Now, the image tag does have to have several attributes. Some of them are required and some of them are just strongly recommended. But the source is required. The source attribute works much the same way as the href attribute for an anchor. This is what file we are going to display. So it's src, not scr, src for source, and then the name of the file, which in this case is kayakdc.gif. Okay? Now that's our first attribute. Our second attribute we need to always include. It's not mandatory, but it is strongly encouraged. It is called alt text. Alt text is available for people who use screen readers to access your website. So there's a couple of laws and regulations around, especially websites that receive federal funding. So for instance, like an education website, that you have to include, or you have to make your website accessible to those with disabilities. Alt text is one of the ways that you can do that. It ensures that someone who is vision impaired will understand what the website picture, what the pictures are on the website. For this one, we're going to do kayakdoorcounty.net. Now also we can include a width and height. These are not required, but they are recommended, and sometimes they're necessary because you need to scale down your picture. Okay, so that's it. We have a source that is what picture we are choosing. The alt text gives us, makes our image web accessible for those who have a disability. And then our width and height are also optional. So let's take a look in our browser, and when we refresh the page, now this has changed to an image. Now, what if you wanted to use images for your navigation structure, like home, tours, reservation, and contact? If ever you want to use images for your navigation, you need to include text navigation somewhere else on your document. So we are going to do this. Let's take this nav section and we're going to copy it, not cut it, copy it. So you can do Command C on the keyboard, right click copy, and then right down in our footer, just before that small tag opens, let's do a Command V as in Victor to paste. Scroll back up to the top navigation section. And instead of including all of these text-based links, we are going to use some images that already exist in your folder. Let's begin by adding some styles to this before we get started. So we're going to create an ID called bar, and it's going to set a background color so that if any of our images are not exactly where we want them to be, that background color will shine through, and that background color is also the background color of our pictures. Okay, and then because some browsers display a border around our images if they're hyperlinks, we want to remove that. So we're going to say IMG border none. And that way, just in case someone's using an older browser, it would take away that border. Okay, let's go down to the nav section, and we're going to assign this ID to the nav. So ID equals bar. And then for each of these, we're going to change this, which is the text that you click on, to an image that you click on, okay? So instead of having the text, remember whatever is in between your anchor tags is what the user clicks on to get to that particular page. Instead of having text, we'll have images, okay? So for the first one, after index, in between our A tags, delete the home text and add an image tag. Remember, we have to have a source, and it's going to be home.gif. We're going to do alt text of home. We're going to set a width of 90 and a height of 35. Okay. Now I'm going to, let me stretch this out just a little bit. I'm going to come back with this completed. Okay, so I've completed adding all the images, replacing the text within the anchor tags, and there are some differences. Note that your width does change for the reservations and the contact because that is a wider image than the others. But the height remains the same on all. So the height is 35 on all of them, which makes sense because you wouldn't want a varying height on your navigation bar. You'd want them all the same. But the width does change. So 190 width for reservations, 130 for contact. And then make sure, double check your sources. Make sure you spelled reservations correctly. Everything needs to be spelled correctly. And then open in your browser and you should have this, which the images now are links. So when we click on those, we can see those pages are under construction, but now you know your navigation works.